For almost a century, the UK political system has operated like a two-horse race: Labour versus Conservatives. That rivalry has shaped everything from policy debates to voter identity. Since 1924, when Ramsay MacDonald became the first Labour Prime Minister, the UK has largely seen power swing between these two political giants. It was a model that seemed entrenched, immovable and unshakable. But not anymore. Something significant is happening in 2025. The long-standing dominance of the two-party system is being chipped away, not just by the passage of time or voter apathy, but by the rise of alternative political forces and growing public disillusionment with the status quo. And two of the most disruptive forces in this political transformation are Reform UK and the Greens. To understand the depth of this shift, let's look at the numbers. According to the latest national survey, Labour's support has slumped to just 14% in a new opinion poll, putting the party on track for its worst election result in more than a century. Sir Keir Starmer's party was fourth behind Reform UK, the Conservatives and the Green Party in the poll of 2,591 adults by Find Out Now. What makes this especially notable is how far and how fast public sentiment appears to have shifted. A party that entered government with a decisive mandate is now, in this snapshot of opinion, sitting behind three different competitors. These numbers do not predict a final election outcome. Polls are not destiny, but they do show how voters currently feel. And that picture is very different from where the country stood just over a year ago. What you're looking at here is one of the clearest signs that the UK's political landscape is changing in a way we haven't seen for a generation. This is the latest Find Out Now national voting intention poll, and when you look at these numbers, the shift is impossible to ignore. Reform UK sits at the top with 31%, still leading the national vote share. That alone would have been unthinkable just a couple of years ago. But now it's becoming a pattern, not an outlier. The Conservatives are in second place at 20%, rising slightly from previous weeks, but still far behind Reform. And then look at Labour, 14%. That is their lowest score ever recorded by this pollster. For a party that formed a government barely over a year ago, this is a dramatic collapse in support. But perhaps the most striking part of this table is the performance of the Green Party at 18%. Historically a minor party, they are now firmly in third place, ahead of Labour, and closing the gap with the Conservatives. This isn't just voter frustration. This is a reordering of the entire party hierarchy in real time. In the latest Find Out Now poll we just looked at, the Conservatives are sitting at only 20%, with Labour even lower at 14%. That means that together, the two historic main parties are pulling in only 34% of the national vote. For context, Margaret Thatcher's Conservative Party in 1983 secured 42.4% of the vote on its own. Tony Blair did even better in 1997, taking 43.2%. In other words, both major parties combined today barely equal the support a single major party used to enjoy on its own. That comparison is not just striking, it's historic. There are many reasons for this shift, one of the biggest being voter disillusionment with the mainstream parties. Over the past decade, millions of voters have grown frustrated with both Labour and the Conservatives, increasingly seeing them as out of touch, self-serving, and unable to deliver real change. Scandals, policy U-turns, and leadership chaos have only deepened the public's mistrust. Take the Conservatives. The Partygate scandal under Boris Johnson, where senior officials, including the Prime Minister himself, were caught breaching COVID lockdown rules at Downing Street, sparked nationwide outrage. While ordinary citizens were fined and missed important life milestones, those in power were seen partying behind closed doors. And on top of that came the COVID contracts and PPE scandal, where billions of pounds were wasted on unusable or overpriced equipment. An accusation surfaced that politically connected companies were fast-tracked through so-called VIP lanes. For many voters, this confirmed the sense that the system was being run for insiders rather than the public. But Labour has not been immune to controversy either. Beyond Freebiegate, which saw Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves and Angela Rayner criticised for accepting expensive gifts from donor Wahid Ali, from designer clothing to Taylor Swift tickets, some of which were initially undeclared, the party has been hit by several additional scandals that have damaged its credibility. Angela Rayner faced intense scrutiny over allegations that she avoided stamp duty or underpaid tax, but the controversy dominated the news cycle and raised questions about Labour's commitment to transparency. Then came the backlash surrounding Peter Mandelson's appointment to a senior advisory role within Labour. Mandelson's return was controversial not just because of his long-standing reputation as a symbol of the Blair-era political establishment, but also because of his past social links to Jeffrey Epstein. Photos and reports have shown Mandelson had contact with Epstein over the years, including being listed in Epstein's personal address book. Not evidence of wrongdoing, but enough to create a major optics problem for a government claiming to restore trust and integrity. For many voters, bringing Mandelson back into the heart of Labour's leadership felt like a stark contradiction of Starmer's promise to clean up politics. And beyond scandals, voters have also grown frustrated with what they see as broken economic promises. The current government has faced sharp criticism for raising taxes to levels not seen in decades, despite promising during the election campaign not to increase the tax burden on working people. Critics argue that measures introduced since taking office, including higher payroll taxes, frozen thresholds, and other stealth tax rises, contradict Labour's own manifesto commitments. For many households, the result has been higher monthly deductions, rising living costs, and a growing sense that the government is saying one thing publicly while doing another behind the scenes. This perception of broken promises has further fueled voter dissatisfaction and contributed to the rapid decline in support. Taken together, historic tax rises, Freebiegate's undeclared perks, Rayner's tax controversy, and Mandelson's deeply uncomfortable links to Epstein resurfacing during his appointment, these scandals have reinforced a growing perception that Labour is repeating the very behaviours it once criticised in others. And this, more than anything else, helps explain why so many voters are turning away from the traditional parties and toward alternatives. The polling organisation behind the data also highlighted the unusual nature of the result. As the head of research explained, Mr. Sermon said, "People will point out that we have them lower than other pollsters. But worth remembering that every single pollster, not one exception out of roughly 20 pollsters, overstated Labour at the last election." Statements like this add important context. Different pollsters use different methodologies, and all polling should be interpreted cautiously. Still, when a polling firm says this is the lowest figure they have ever recorded for a major governing party, that is a data point which stands out on its own. To understand this shift, it helps to look at the wider picture of how other parties are performing. According to the same survey, Nigel Farage's Reform UK led the poll, conducted on Wednesday on 31%, followed by the Conservatives on 20% and the Greens on 18%. Labour's 14% placed it fourth, with the Liberal Democrats at 11%. These numbers illustrate not just a decline for one party, but a significant reshaping of the political landscape in all directions, with substantial rises for Reform UK, steady gains for the Conservatives, and the Greens reaching a surprisingly strong national position. One reason this poll is attracting so much attention is because it isn't an isolated result. As recent trends show, it is the latest in a string of polls that have put Labour behind the Greens since Zach Polanski was elected leader of that party in September. It is also the latest survey to record a rise in support for the Conservatives after what has been seen as a good few weeks for Kemi Badenoch, the Tory leader. When multiple polls begin to move in the same direction, analysts naturally pay closer attention, not because the numbers are final, but because patterns, even short-term ones, can reveal shifts in voter confidence, policy reactions, and public mood. So the question becomes, what is driving this shift? While no single factor ever fully explains a change in public opinion, several data points offer important context. First, there have been sharp reactions to some recent policy decisions. According to the survey summary, following a series of unpopular policies, support for Labour has decreased steadily since Sir Keir won the general election last year. This doesn't assign blame or praise. It reflects the simple reality that public opinion often responds directly to the policies governments introduce, especially when those policies are linked to tax, spending, or cost of living pressures. One policy decision standing out is the recent budget. Last month's budget saw Rachel Reeves launch a £13 billion tax raid on incomes despite Labour's manifesto pledge not to target working people. The overall increase pushed the tax burden to the highest it has been in modern history. Taxation is one of the most immediate ways voters feel government decisions. Whether one views higher taxes as necessary or harmful is a political opinion, but the factual reality remains. A £13 billion income tax rise affects a very large number of working households and moves the tax burden to a historic peak. Polling frequently responds to changes of this scale. Electoral signals at the local level also help illustrate how voters are reacting. One notable example occurred recently. In October, Labour took just 11% of the vote in the Caerphilly by-election, a seat the party had previously held since the 1920s. This by-election result did not receive the same level of national attention as a general election would, but the scale of the drop in a historically safe seat was an early indicator that something was shifting beneath the surface. Labour's polling decline is worrying enough on its own, but what makes the situation especially concerning for the party is that this isn't just a story about numbers on a chart. Polls can fluctuate, polls can be wrong, polls can reflect temporary anger or frustration, but election results are something entirely different. They are hard facts, they are measurable outcomes, and they reveal how voters behave when it actually matters, when there is a ballot box, not just a survey form. That is why the Caerphilly by-election result stands out as one of the clearest warning signs Labour has faced in years. According to the official results, Labour took just 11% of the vote in the Caerphilly by-election, a seat the party had previously held since the 1920s. This is not a marginal seat. This is not a swing seat. This is a constituency that has been part of Labour's political identity for almost a century. For Labour to collapse to 11% in a seat it has dominated for generations is more than a defeat. It is a structural alarm bell. This matters because polling data can sometimes overstate or understate public feeling, but a real-world by-election shows what voters actually do when given a choice. It strips away the hypothetical. It reveals whether frustration with a party is momentary or whether it has hardened into action. And in Caerphilly, voters did not merely shift slightly away from Labour. They delivered a result that cannot be dismissed as a blip or a protest vote. Combined with the national polling, where Labour now sits at just 14% and has fallen to fourth place, these developments suggest a deeper problem. A governing party rarely sees this level of collapse so soon after winning power. Losing a seat held since the 1920s signals something more fundamental: a breakdown in trust, confidence or connection between Labour and parts of its traditional base. Polls can warn, but election results confirm. And Caerphilly confirms that Labour's current troubles are not theoretical. They are real, they are historic, and they reveal a level of voter disillusionment that the party cannot afford to ignore. The shift we're seeing is more than a temporary wobble. It's a historic turning point. For the first time in nearly a century, Britain's political landscape is no longer anchored by two dominant parties, but shaped by rising alternatives and voters who are demanding something different. Labour's fall to 14%, Reform UK's surge, the Greens overtaking a governing party, and the loss of a seat held since the 1920s all point to one reality: the electorate is rewriting the rules in real time. If you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.